Okay, so now I would like to switch gears and introduce Harvey Mysel for the last portion of this evening's PKD Summit 2022. It's my pleasure to introduce Harvey to you all this evening. He is a PKD patient and a two-time kidney transplant recipient. Harvey founded the nonprofit Living Kidney Donors Network after he realized that those in need of a kidney transplant weren't getting the information they needed to develop and become successful at finding a living donor. Harvey's facilitated workshops and webcasts for many organizations who help those who need or who help those need or will need a kidney transplant. Thousands have attended or watched his programs and have gone on to develop their campaigns towards a successful living kidney transplant experience. I've had the benefit of seeing Harvey, gosh, it must be about 10 or so years ago at a PKD conference in the United States. And that's what really sparked my interest in his campaign, the work that Harvey has done, and of course, the services he does a great job of providing. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Harvey, who will take it from here with his presentation.
Great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the PKD Summit 2022. I'm Harvey Mysel. Tonight's presentation is titled, Having Your Donor Find You. That may sound strange, but that's what really happens. You get the word out regarding your need for a kidney transplant, and your donor finds you. I've asked hundreds of recipients, how did you ask your donor to donate? And I get the same response. I didn't ask them. I've also inquired to donors, and they say the same. No one asked me. I heard about their need, and I wanted to help. Which takes me to the two most important points I'll make tonight. You don't need to ask someone to donate, and it's all about telling your story. I started the nonprofit Living Kidney Donors Network in 2007 after my wife donated to me. I also have PKD. I've helped hundreds through the transplant process with the in-person workshops, my webcasts, a free video program that you'll hear about, and the many experiences helping others directly. I hope you'll take this information that is presented and develop your campaign so your donor can find you. After the presentation, there'll be time for questions. So let's get started. So I want to provide you with a brief overview of living kidney donation. I'll help you develop your story, and then I'll provide you with ideas for your campaign. Those are the three areas that I'll be covering. The more knowledge you have about any topic gives you confidence to talk about it. So I encourage you to learn as much as you can about the donation process, living donation, what donors go through, also your transplant center. The more knowledge you have, the easier it's going to be to talk to people about your situation. So I did mention a video series that I've developed, and I'm going to play the trailer for you, a little bit of a teaser to give you an idea of what you'll learn through these 9 videos, each under 3 minutes. And the link above will take you to the full video series. It's free.
Hi, my name is Harvey Mysel. I've developed this program with one goal in mind: to help you have a successful living kidney transplant experience. The good news is that you don't have to ask someone to be a donor. I know that may sound strange, but donors tell me, no one asked me to donate. I was inspired when I heard their story. It's all about your story. Over the following episodes, I'll help you build a team of advocates, I'll educate you about living donation, and I'll help you develop and share your story. You'll be able to educate others and correct people who believe the many myths and misconceptions that are floating around. Let's talk about developing your story. You've written your story, but how do you tell it in person? Using social media is a powerful way to tell your story. Being creative will greatly improve your chances of your donor finding you. Have you considered using a yard sign to tell your story? Paired exchanges have revolutionized living kidney transplant. These are critical components you'll need so your donor can find you. Commit yourself to this program. This can be a new beginning. I'm excited for you. So let's get started.
So the program is not only for you. I talk about advocates. It'll be important for you to share the link with others that want to help you get your story out there. The program is just as much for advocates, friends, and family members as it is for you to go ahead with the information that's there. So there are many myths and misconceptions. Okay, people, sometimes you have to overcome the preconceived ideas that people have about organ donation. So these are some of the things, and I'm going to come back to using these myths and misconceptions a little later on, and how you can emphasize them, because you don't know what people, the knowledge that they have. So, many people think they have a spare. As we know with PKD, there is no spare. It affects both the two leading causes, kidney failure, diabetes, and hypertension. Again, they impact both kidneys. So there certainly isn't a spare. 1 in 750 people are born with one kidney, and they live a normal life. So you don't need two kidneys. We don't know why we have two kidneys, but if you ask a donor, they'll say that's because you're able to donate one. Some women think they can't have children. Certainly they need to speak to their doctor, let them know if they only have one kidney, but many women have children after donating a kidney. Some centers might say they have an age limit, but I wouldn't take that at face value. Things have changed dramatically. People in their 70s, even in their 80s, have donated. And many people think matching is difficult. I mentioned my wife donated to me. She, many people have said, wow, that's amazing that you were able to donate to your husband. You're not related, blood related. But now it's very, very different. Many spouses, and we'll talk about non-related donors that are there. But it is just a misconception that people have. Tattoos have become popular. That doesn't seem to be an issue to be donating. But some people do. You need to educate them. So there are many benefits of a living donor. And in actuality, it does, when you have a living donor, help save 2 lives, because you get the transplant, you're not on the waiting list, you're moving someone up very quickly to get a transplant. The short and long-term survival rates are much better from a living donor. On average, they last twice as long as one from a deceased donor, and that is really significant. With a living donor, it's rare for the kidney not to start to function immediately. In fact, a common message that the doctors come out after the transplant and say, it was producing urine immediately, which is absolutely wonderful. But it's not always the case with a deceased donor. About 20 to 30% of the time they don't function immediately. They call it a sleepy kidney. It may take a week or 2 or 3, and it could impact certainly the short and long-term viability that's there. I'm often asked, who should I look for? What's the personality trait of living donor? I'll go through a couple, but I throw out, some people in different work environments, people that are religious, fraternal, people that are members of fraternal organizations, teachers, policemen, fire, social workers, public servants, even going to your alumni association, or being a member or going to participate there. But these are individuals that have these kinds of traits, okay? They typically feel for other people. They identify with them and connect with them better, and are, more caring. They're concerned about other people. They can emphasize with what you are going through and kind of understand it. But again, I'll get back to the story. That is what is going to connect them initially, is something about you, your story, your lifestyle, things like that. There's a doctor that's written a couple books. She's got a wonderful TED Talk you can look at, and she's done a lot of work with donors. In fact, she did a study where she put donors in an MRI and asked them questions and looked at their brain and the things that lit up. The part of the brain that shows empathy lit up much more with these individuals, 8% more than others. And when you took a look at their MRIs, they were all, very, very similar and sort of the exact opposite of a psychopath, who didn't have any empathy for people and such. So these are the kinds of individuals that you could target. But again, it really is all about your story. So this word match or matching comes up a lot. I prefer to use the two terms suitable and compatible. Suitable meaning, when a donor is getting worked up, that they're healthy enough to donate. Okay, that's the first thing that they'll be going through. And then the center will see whether or not they're compatible with you. So suitable and compatible are really the two terms that I like to use more. And there are many compatibility factors, but the two most important ones are blood type. Now, I'll get into blood type a little bit more. And the other one is these antibodies. They're called PRA is the term that is used. And these are the antibodies that are in the recipient's blood. So if you have a higher level of these antibodies, it's harder to find a compatible donor. So these antibodies develop in your body if you've had a previous transplant, a blood transfusion. Basically, it's some foreign object and antibodies develop to fight it off. Or for some women, not all women, giving birth. Again, it's a bit of a foreign object that the body is looking at. So some antibodies can be developed. So if you have these antibodies, let's just say your PRA, or you have a level of 20, they're measured from 0 to 100. So if it's 20, that would mean 20% of the population would not be able to donate to you. You would reject their kidney. And they do these tests so they know beforehand whether or not the person is compatible with you. Some people have a high level of antibodies in the 80s or 90s or even higher. The term that's used often is that they're highly sensitized. So you may hear that term that's used. But those are the two primary ones. And they do a blood test that tests whether or not the person is compatible with you. Sometimes they'll do a cross-match with your blood and the potential donor's blood early on in the process. And they'll certainly do one shortly before the transplant, usually within a few days, because that it could change in terms of whether or not someone is compatible with you. So the cross-match is usually the last test that's done before the transplant. It's kind of the go, no-go, something that might throw a wrench in the process. There are different kinds of living donor transplants, rated, related, non-related. And again, pretty obvious what they are, but I want to bring it up to emphasize that there are more and more non-related living donors. So you can, certainly reach out far and wide, and it doesn't need to be a blood relative. There's something called a non-directed donor. And a non-directed donor is someone who wants to donate, but doesn't know anyone who's in need of a transplant. They're really, quite special people. And many of the paired exchanges in Canada are started by a non-directed donor, and I'll show you how that works in a second. So when you have someone who wants to donate to you, and they're not compatible with you, they can still help you with a paired exchange. And this is a situation where you have a donor 1, recipient 1, they're not compatible. Same thing with donor 2 is not compatible with that recipient, okay? And they do a paired exchange or a swap, okay? I'm giving you a 2-way paired exchange, could be 3-way, 4-way, 5-way paired exchange. There's really no limit in the number that they can do. And paired exchanges is one of the few really advances in the last 20 years that is having a significant impact in the number of living kidney transplants that are being done. So it really is wonderful. This is the way that non-directed donor who just wants to donate but doesn't know anyone. Here's the example of a 2-pair, but donor 2 isn't compatible with recipient 1 or 2, so they can't do the paired exchange or the swap here. Enter the non-directed donor in the scenario, and you have another donor, you need another recipient, and as a result of this non-directed donor, this 3-way pair, could be 4 or 5-way pair, is able to happen. Donor 1 could donate to recipient 2, donor 2 to recipient 3, and that non-directed donor to recipient 1. So very powerful, these non-directed donors. They could donate to one person, but they can also get involved in a paired exchange. And as this example, they're benefiting 3 people, or it could be more. Recipient 3 also is got a bit of a nice surprise, is that they come from the waiting list. They get a call and they say, we have a paired exchange with a non-directed donor, and that's obviously a nice call to take from that person or for that person. So a little bit on blood type. I have the donor blood type can donate to a certain blood type. So blood type O can donate to any other blood type, A, B, AB, and O's, okay? O can only blood type to their letter, A or AB, and the same with B, can only donate to their letter, B or AB. And blood type AB can only donate to an AB recipient, okay? So and the bottom line here is the blood type O is the universal donor. They can donate to anyone. And to reverse things around, okay, blood type AB is the universal recipient. So they can accept a blood type from anyone. So that's obviously nice for the recipient. That's there. So blood type O is the most common, and also there's no plus or minus. The Rh factor is not an issue with kidney transplants, so you don't have to deal with that at all. So with blood type O, if you are a blood type O, you might have been told or likely been told it's going to be harder to find a donor because you can only accept a kidney from blood type O, and that is certainly true. But it's not like blood type O is, a very small percentage of the population, okay? It's almost half of the population. So it really is, something, that you should be concerned about because you can only accept it from an O. But like I said, it's not like it's a blood type AB where you can only, it's only 3% of the population that's there. So it is something to just to be aware of if you hear that it's going to be more difficult to get a donor because you're blood type O. So my feeling is that there's no need to share your blood type with your campaign. Is it important? Absolutely, blood type's important. But the reasons I give for not sharing it is many people don't know their blood type, so it doesn't really matter to them. They have no idea what their blood type is. But even worse than that is others are mistaken. I've heard many stories about someone thought they were one blood type. They go in and they get, typed by the hospital and they find out they're a different blood type. So, there's no reason that someone will totally remove themselves thinking they're the wrong blood type because you put out there, you're looking for a certain blood type. Let the transplant center do the blood typing. That's their responsibility. It's not yours. And another reason is paired exchanges, okay? If you have a donor that's an incompatible blood type, you can get involved in the paired exchanges. They really have totally changed the whole community as to what has gone on in terms of being able to take these incompatible donors that are out there. So let's talk a little bit about how you're going to communicate your story, the things that you can do. You'll hear a lot on those videos, okay, that you heard the trailer to. There's 9 videos, each of 3 minutes. They're really brief, short, a lot of information that's there, and there's a lot of printed information also on that website that you'll see. So our lives are all about stories. Going to a good restaurant, a bad restaurant, seeing a movie, good book, bad book, whatever, what happened at the store the other day. This is really our lives. I mean, if you kind of break it down, we're constantly telling stories. So this is what you will need to do for your campaign, okay? Either written or oral, both. You'll need to really get your story down so you can express it quickly. Remember, you're not asking someone to donate. Really get that out of your mind, okay? It's all about sharing your story. And really commit to this. It is a campaign. Is it time consuming? Yes. But what's more important than saving your own life? Okay. And so it really is a campaign. It needs some structure. You need to put some time away to do the things that we're going to talk about doing, because it is time consuming. There's no question that it is. And people often ask me, who should I tell? How often? And my answer is everyone, every day. Okay, you get cashiers at grocery stores that donate to the customer. Okay, or a coffee shop barista. How much time did that person have to tell their story to that individual? So really, you don't need that much time. Okay, it needs to be the top of your mind to be able to do it to the people you meet or the people you're engaging with, if it's not in person. So here's my story, okay? And you're not going to read it, okay? People post things like this, and I tell them I'm removing the post, rewrite it, because no one's going to read it. I'm not going to read it. It needs to be short. We have a very, very short attention span. So here are some ideas on what you can do to keep it shorter, okay? Definitely use bullets, okay? Use your short, words to describe your situation. And here are some ideas, but you want to personalize it again. You want to make it your story. But you can, say it's the best option that is there. You can talk about the weight, whatever it might be in your area. You can, tell them that, kidney from a living donor lasts on average twice as long as one from a deceased donor. If you're on dialysis, you can express some of the challenges you're having or that you want to avoid being on dialysis. And here's the personalization, I want to. And it's important to express what you want and the things that you want to do in your life, because it'll resonate with someone, okay? And it'll also make a connection. Maybe it's some of the things that they want to do in their life. And that's what you're trying to do with your story, is make that connection with someone that is reading your story. Having advocates is really important. I think a large percentage of donors found out about their recipient from an advocate, okay? And so having others share your story. So I have an advocate story. 5 years after my transplant, I developed the virus and I needed another transplant. And it was honestly very difficult after, helping people for 5 years and telling them what to do and how to go about developing a campaign. I had to do it myself. And honestly, it's a lot easier to tell people how to do it than to do it yourself. But it did take me, a few days, but I started my campaign. One day I was on Facebook, a woman, I'm in the Chicago area, a woman outside of Seattle posted a story about organ donation. I happened to see it, and I contacted her. I never spoke with her. It was all through Messenger or postings on each other's site. Asked her why she posted it. She said she just thought it was a good story, and she wanted to know why I was reaching out to her. And I told her my story, as I told many people, and I thought that was the end of that. Stephen, who ended up being my donor, lives outside of Detroit. He saw her posting, and he had been thinking about being a donor, and he thought maybe this woman can help him. And she said, no, I can't help you, but why don't you contact Harvey? He's got a nonprofit organization that helps people, and also he needs a kidney transplant. Well, Stephen did contact me, and we were involved in a three-way paired exchange. And you might be thinking, what a miracle. 20 years ago, yeah, it would have been a miracle for something like this to happen, but not anymore. These electronic, what I call electronic neighbors, I'm in touch with more than my physical neighbors. So don't minimize how important those are in terms of those electronic people and also having advocates to really help you in the process, because they do often make that connection between the recipient and the donor. And they'll see opportunities that you won't. We'll talk about different things, and you can brainstorm with them, the things that you can do. And some advocates will just help you navigate the whole system while you're going through it. Maybe your medical appointments, maybe you have someone that's good with social media, or good with email, or uses different tools that are out there. Any help you can get is great. And the best advocate that I think is out there is someone that is offered to be a donor. They get worked up and they find out they have a medical condition and they're not able to donate. Well, then their story becomes part of your story, because when they start telling your story, the first thing they can say is, I wanted to donate to so-and-so, but I have a medical condition which precludes me. It really is a powerful statement for someone to be able to make to somebody else in a situation like that. So some stories go viral. I have no real explanation as to why they do, but in reading up about viral stories, they're often simple. They're usually not very complicated, okay, but they hit some emotion, okay? There's something there that makes that connection, that wants an individual to start to share that story. And there's usually something pretty real about it that you can relate to. So those are some ideas in trying to put in your story. So maybe it will go viral and create a sense of urgency for your situation. That's there. So you might be thinking, where do I start? What do I do? How do I go about this process? So what I've done here is I've broken down 4 different areas that I'll spend a little time in, and how you can use them and do one at a time. Don't try to do everything at once, or if you have an advocate, maybe they can pick up on one of the areas that you might not be as proficient in. So start with one and then proceed with something else. With family members and friends might be easiest to start. You know these people. I'm going to encourage you, again, talking about your story, is to write out your story. And I really mean write it out with pen and paper, not type it on a computer. It's been shown that you will write things very differently with your hand than you will type it. It'll be more personal. It'll be more from your heart than just typing it out. So really write it out first, write it out a couple of times, make changes as time goes by. And then you can type it out and use it electronically. But you will write out something very different than you'll type out on a computer. Also, I encourage you when you're getting information out is to include the contact info of the donor advocate at your transplant center. Try to get their approval first, but get their phone number or email address and include it in your information, because someone may not want to call you first. They may want to learn a little more about the donation process, and they may want to speak to someone else. So give them that opportunity to speak to someone who's knowledgeable about the process. And when you're putting information out there, especially digitally easier, put a photo in there, something, casual, or a video. I'll show you a couple of videos, keep them really, really short, but a photo of yourself. You can include an activity that you're involved with. If you don't have something like that, a child, a grandchild, even a pet, there's a connection there. There's a softer a view of you when you put it in that context. And reach out to local media. They all have online newsletters. They all want human interest story, and you have a good human interest story. Local schools, if your children are in school, religious groups, reunions, many stories about reunions, people meeting someone there that ends up donating. If you want to read stories either about people receiving a transplant or looking for a transplant, there's a service, Google has a service, it's called Alerts. You put in keywords. You can put in living donation, kidney transplant, PKD, whatever keyword, and every day you'll get articles about transplants and organ donations. You'll get dozens of articles. And they're wonderful to look at and to learn from. Here's another idea that you can use. I call it the home get-together. Invite people into your house. Invite 5, 10 people, whatever, okay? And you can put together some information about what you're going through, okay? And see if they can ask questions. And you invite them over under the context that you want them to help spread the word. Okay, the reality is you're educating them about organ donation, and maybe one of them will step up, but you are looking for advocates. And if you are interested, you can contact me. You'll have my contact info on the last slide. And if you want to do a home get-together, we can do a Zoom call. I can be in your living room, and we can do a modified presentation like this. So if that's something of interest, please reach out to me. I've done these for people, and they end up being a good opportunity for others to learn more about organ donation. So using email and social media. This is really the way to reach large numbers of people. There's no limitation. You can reach thousands of people a day. If you're not good with social media, I'm sure you know someone that is, that can help you using Facebook or Twitter or whatever that's out there. How often to email a post? I mean, some people post every day. Some people post 2-3 times a week. Find your comfort level. But the most important thing is when you post, you want to provide some information, okay? And that's where some of the articles that you'll see online, that you can share some information, or just information that you're gathering about yourself that's happening, okay? I'm getting closer to being evaluated. I am evaluated. It was approved. Whatever things might be going on in your life. And here's an idea if you want to do something on a regular basis. It's Tuesdays with, if I was sending it out, it would be Tuesdays with Harvey. It's a play off of the book Tuesdays with Maury. If you haven't read the book or seen the movie, you can look into it. Every Tuesday, in the subject line, you say Tuesdays with Harvey. You'll say Tuesdays with you, and you give some information, okay? You can take some of the myths and misconceptions, okay, and describe a little bit of something that's there. You'll get many other ideas from the Having Your Donor Find You website also, and on those videos. So people say, should I have a Facebook page? Should I have a website? It's good to have both if you could, because they have different functions. Facebook page, is like a megaphone. very quickly getting information out to somebody that's following you. A website can provide a lot more information. There are tabs, you can talk about paired exchanges or anything else that's there. And there are some examples on the website that you can utilize. So meeting people every day, they give you the opportunity to talk, okay? They say, how are you? They give you the floor, but you need to be prepared. You need to be ready to tell your story. It happens all the time, everyday experience, multiple times a day that's out there. The challenge with it is it's short-lived. If you miss that second, 2-3 seconds that are there, the opportunity is lost. So you really need to be prepared to respond when someone says, how are you? And tell the story. And the way you get to do that is by practicing, okay? Practice with your family member or friend, practice in front of a mirror. This is not the first time I've made this presentation, but before I did, I was practicing in front of a mirror. And when it changes, I practice it in front of a mirror to make sure I can get it right. So getting creative, you know, and I have only one rule about getting creative, and the rule is it's got to be legal, okay? You can get as creative as possible. You can't pay someone for a kidney. So there's a wide range of getting creative out there. Here's a business card that I developed. The right side is the back of the business card, and you get your story there. There's plenty of space to get your story there. So if you're talking to someone, they don't have a lot of time, you can give them the business card, just say, hey, don't know if you're aware, but I'm in need of a kidney transplant. Here's a little bit of the information. I'll catch up with you tomorrow, or whatever it might be. And you can hand business cards out to friends and family members for them to do the same. It's a simple way to get your story out there. Car signs are very popular, being used. I see them fairly regularly, back of the car, side of the car. This may not be for everyone standing on a corner with a sign, but it certainly is effective. A lot of people see it, and women don't only do it for their husbands. Husbands do it for their wives also. It's whatever your comfort level is. Getting the story out there is essential. Yard signs are a great idea. This person got great publicity. A TV station picked it up, did a video about them, and we'll talk a little bit more about how important that is. This happened quite a few years ago. It was a fellow in Disneyland, and this went viral. I must have received, I don't know, 100 emails from people with this photo. It was crazy after a while. How many people saw it, and newspapers picked it up. It was really quite amazing. And he did get a transplant off of the t-shirt. So this is Louis Banda, someone that I helped through the process. And if you take a look on the right, you'll see Louis is at a concert. Louis went to concerts, he went to sporting events, and he would go, wear his t-shirt, wear his sweatshirt, and he would look for the video cameras, and he would occasionally get up on the big board at a concert because the video guy put him up on the big board. Louis ended up getting, his donor found him at a concert and got transplanted. The video series that you're watching is also in Spanish. Louis did it in Spanish. And it's being viewed by thousands of people. It's really quite wonderful. Louis really has given it back. Been wonderful. Billboards are popular. I'm showing, this is a picture of a billboard. I'm showing it because you not only get exposure from your t-shirt, billboard, sign, whatever, but if you get journalists to pick it up, you're really getting a lot of exposure, from that also. So once you have whatever you're using, send it locally so you can get that. This was just recently a woman, she's scheduled for a transplant in 2 weeks. This is a creative yard sign that she put together. Here's a link. You can watch the news story they did around her. She got 70 people to call in to offer to donate. So, getting media to pick up on whatever you're doing is fabulous. There's all kinds of online places. This still kind of gets stuck in my throat a little bit. It's just a wonderful, wonderful, creative, and great story that's there. So here's something else. If you're going to do a video, it needs to be short, really short. Our attention span is just not there anymore. And so here's something very creative and short.
Something completely different. Please help find a living kidney donor. Are you the one? It's been devastating to watch my dad, Jim Piccirillo, be robbed of his freedom by kidney disease. My name is Bina, and I've been Jim's Fidelco guide dog for over 7 years. Panda, Jim's first guide dog, and I have flown over 250,000 miles with Jim while having spectacular adventures during his last 25 years, working as a legally blind creative and inventive electrical engineer. Blindness did not slow him down, but he's now overwhelmed by spending over 9 hours every day on a machine receiving dialysis treatments. One blood test can confirm candidacy of a potential living kidney transplant donor match. My dad is grateful to everyone who considers this precious gift of life. It takes an exceptional person to give this exceptional gift. Are you the one? If not, please share this message and join the adventure to help find a living kidney donor. Thank you.
So that's 57 seconds, okay, a minute. You can convey a lot of information in a minute, and obviously in a creative way. So don't think you need 3, 4, 5 minutes. People will not watch videos. I know someone sends me a video of 5 or 10 minutes, it goes to the back of the line, I will admit. So you have had a similar experience in your life, okay, if you've ever looked for employment. It has a lot in common with seeking out a kidney. Most people don't want to look for a job, and not your first choice to have to pursue a kidney transplant. And the similarities really do continue. For both, you've got to accept the reality of your situation and develop a plan. We probably know someone who lost their job and did nothing for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. You've got to step up and start doing the work. Much like looking for a job, you research the options. Same thing here. Learn as much as you can about organ donation. And again, it's like writing out a resume, writing out your story. It's got to be compelling. Ask others to maybe look at it. If you want, you can send it to me. I view people send me things all the time to review. I'd be glad to take a look at it and make some suggestions. And much like employment, networking is it. We've all been in an elevator and seen that networking person go to work. And so it does take some practice to be able to do it. And obviously telling your story, just like a job interview. If you're good at it, you'll get maybe a second opportunity or the job itself, okay? So it also needs practice, just like that, just practicing. And here's something you can practice, okay? You're at a party at a friend's house and you see someone you know, but haven't spoken to recently, and they're probably unaware of your situation. How would you let this person know about your need for a transplant? Because they're going to come over to you and say, "Hey, Joe, how are you?" Okay, so you need to be prepared. And this is a good scenario for you to look at. So some other ideas. If you see something that someone else is doing, take the idea, okay? Use it yourself, okay? Real networking meetings, for jobs is not a bad place to go also. I encourage people to volunteer. You meet new people, and that's important. Fraternal religious organizations are great opportunities. I really do want you to open up a search engine and put in the search engine, Craigslist ad, I need a kidney transplant, and watch all of the success stories that come up. You'll be surprised. There are many, many people that have had success putting an ad on Craigslist. It may sound crazy, but when you search it, you'll see how many that are out there. There's a kidney out there for you. That person probably just doesn't know yet that you're in need. So make your own luck and get the word that's out there. So learn as much as you can about living donation. It'll give you more confidence to talk about it. Advocates are really important. Friends, family members, even people you barely know can be an advocate on your behalf. And tell everyone about your situation. We're going to do some Q&A, so someone else will take over, and let's get some questions answered. Thanks so much for listening. Here's my contact info, and please reach out to me if you have any questions. Wishing you all the best.
And we're back. Harvey, fantastic presentation as always. A lot of excellent information there delivered in very palatable pieces. And I think that that's the big takeaway from this, right, is getting people to be able to take steps that they're able to and build off of a campaign in that capacity. The hardest part that we hear from a lot of patients is breaking that ice and getting started. A lot of people, whether they're shy or they don't know how to share their story, it's that icebreaker and taking the first step, whether that's a Facebook page, a Craigslist ad, or anything in between. How do you encourage people to take that plunge, knowing when they get comfortable with it and familiar with it, it becomes second nature to them? And we've seen that. We've seen campaigns grow tremendously.
It is difficult to get started. There's no question. But like you said, do it in small steps. If you're not, in social media, then learn a little bit more about it. But someone that is, and they can help you get started. Or even that first, we're opening up a lot more right now. Those face-to-face meetings are becoming more common. Someone says, "Hey, how are you?" Be prepared. And the first, second, or even third time you share that information, it may be difficult. I know it can be. People have expressed, and I have experienced the feeling of getting emotional and needing to catch my breath and taking my time. But people will be patient. You don't have to rush through it. If someone sees you getting emotional, they're going to be quiet because they don't know what to say either at that point. So take a couple of deep breaths and gather your composure. I will tell you, it will get easier as you start to tell your story, and as you start to see other people responding, it'll get easier. But I can't overemphasize having advocates and getting other people to spread the story. And with social media, that has become a lot easier right now. But give them the tools, give them a couple of sentences that they can pass along to make it easier for them in an email or in a posting. Keep your posting short, as I mentioned a few times. So when you are getting out and going out for advocates, try to make it a little easier for them and doing some work so they can just pass along some information.
Great insight. Something that when individuals approach us here at the foundation and want ideas and tips and tricks, and this predates us getting your program onto our website. So when we were doing it more organically, and I would work with folks to build their campaign, I would often give them examples of other campaigns that are out there, like you've recommended, like checking out other Craigslist ads or Facebook pages. So we've seen a lot of confidence be built upon seeing how other people have handled their campaigns online. And I think that that's an important piece for people to understand the varying degree of activity. Some post once a day, once a week, others are posting 6-7 times a day. And there's all walks of campaigns in between that. Can you speak a bit on people learning from other campaigns and the value behind that?
Sure. All you need to do is in any browser is just type in "I need a kidney transplant," and the Facebook pages and the websites will start coming up. And as I reference, you see some idea, they probably got the idea from someone else also. So there's no reason to, kind of take it or run with it, because they're out there. I remember, years ago, I saw a Facebook page. I keep the site location because there weren't many. There are thousands now. Joe needs a kidney transplant. Jim needs it. It's hard to get a URL that's a little unique because there are so many of them out there. So you can very easily find other people doing the same thing, or join groups. There are hundreds of them on Facebook, different groups you can join, get ideas, share information that is out there. So there are many ways to see how other people are doing it now, and other groups to join to see like people who are also pursuing it.
That's a great point. I mean, finding these pages is one thing, but following them and supporting them in that capacity and getting it in your timeline and seeing that. I mean, my social media is inundated in the best way possible with people's advocacy campaigns for finding a living donor. And I'm constantly seeing new ideas and tips and tricks and ways to share information, like things that as modern now as TikTok. People using TikTok and leaning more towards Instagram as we watch Twitter burn these days, and Facebook is for a certain demographic. It's amazing to see. And there's one in particular that I'll share with the group. It's a kidney for mom. And this is a friend of mine from the PKD community, and mom is one word. It's TJ Sullivan's campaign page for his grandmother, who he has been advocating for tirelessly. And this campaign does something that I don't often see. It's providing family and friend personal testimonials about how important TJ's grandmother, mom, is to them and the impact she has on their lives. So when you think about expanding the content to getting other people to write for you as well, and emphasizing how important you are to their family or their social circle, it takes that burden off of you of having to create the content and being the content driver, which is the burdensome part of the campaign, right? Is making the content and not repeating yourself and keeping things fresh and lively. So anyone that wants to see how a really well done campaign that involves countless family members and friends, it's a kidney for mom. Definitely check it out. Harvey, if someone is limited in either their time or their resources, or social media is not in their wheelhouse, what would the key high level items be for you if they still wanted to make an impact and draw attention to themselves, but they're limited either by their health and well-being or the time that they can dedicate? Are there a couple key points that if you can only do one or two, these are them?
Yeah, it is endless. But what the thing is that someone donates because they made a connection. They made a connection with the individual. Something touched them. And you never know what that can be, but there is something that's there. Obviously, a family member, friends, close friend, or brother, sister, that is different. But many of the transplants now are coming from other people. You don't need to be that blood relative. So reaching out further is becoming more important for finding someone. So one of the things that I think is constantly being looked for by local newspapers is a good feel good story. Okay, a human interest story. And every newspaper, small or large, has a journalist that does these human interest stories. So when you see one of them, It may have nothing, it probably has nothing to do with kidney transplants, but some human interest story, contact that journalist and let them know about it, because that's what they write about and they're looking for them. And you have a good human interest story, okay? Needing a kidney transplant and telling the reasons why you want to do that. So your local newspaper and such, and people, like I said, tend to make that connection. And being local is an immediate a connection that someone has that lives near you. So I would look for those local stories to be written about you, and it expands your reach. And then you use that story in your social media outlets and have other people use it also.
And again, throwing it in the old Google machine, living transplant success stories, news stories, you'll see so many come up, and we often highlight those stories and amazing campaigns in our newsletter. And the one that we shared when baseball was still going on was a son-in-law who opted to miss, I think it was the final World Series game, so that he could donate to his father-in-law. And that's something that, obviously got picked up by MLB, got picked up by all the sports syndicates. And again, is showing the success story of a living donation, and again draws attention to it and gets people rallied up that regardless of what you have planned, your gift of life can come at any time. And this gent sacrificed a World Series game for that and has no regrets. And I think that that's a really positive message to get out to the masses.
Yeah, living donor education is needed. It just, deceased donation gets a lot of attention, which it certainly needs and should be getting, but we need more attention. We've talked about all the benefits of a living donor versus one from a deceased donor, but it just doesn't get the kind of education. So part of the challenge that we have who need a kidney transplant, not only telling our story, we need to educate people about living donation, because as I discussed, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions, and people don't even think they can potentially be a living donor.
Definitely. No, it's every avenue you can get out to share your story. Shout it from the rooftop is what we encourage, as a foundation. We heard from Dr. Langtree earlier that the workup generally happens for transplantation and being listed in around that 15% function. Thinking ahead, obviously people want to get a jump start in their campaign to spread awareness and to build an audience and to potentially find folks that could be potential donors. So looking at it from a campaign standpoint, if in and around that 15% function is when you could be worked up, how far ahead would you go to start building your campaign?
If you're told that within the next year or two, you're going to need a kidney transplant, I think you can start then. The only challenge you have is if someone steps forward and wants to get worked up. So what can I do? I want to be a donor. Typically, a center won't work up donors until you have been evaluated as a potential recipient that you are healthy enough to get the transplant. So that's the challenge at the front end. But having somebody there is waiting, or even if you're pursuing a living donor and they're working through the process, it's not the time to stop. Continue to pursue others and let other people know it's great to have a backup when you're going through the process. And as Dr. Langtree, I'm sure can let us know, there are many people for some reason or another late in the process as a donor fall through for some, either medical or some personal reason. So it's always good to have a backup that's there.
Dr. Langtree, do you want to jump in for a sec?
I was just going to say, I really enjoyed your presentation. The power of having it come from another patient just can't be underestimated. Someone who's been through it and walked it, really motivating. My question for you is, I think I've had trouble with some patients, and especially perhaps patients that come from more challenging socioeconomic positions, or they're minorities and they don't have the same resources or networks. And, I think it can really seem overwhelming. Do you have any like specific words of advice that I could maybe try to use in those patients that feel especially overwhelmed because they do come with some of those additional challenges?
Yeah, it's not only that they're overwhelmed, but we are sick. And one of the complaints I'm sure you hear, and one of the early side effects is just, gee, I'm tired all the time. And as we all know, when you're tired all the time, you're not very motivated to do things. So it is an added challenge. And that's where advocates really come in to be helpful. Not only to help spread the word, but to help motivate you, okay? Really trying to find other people that will help you in the process. Because as I said, I think a large percentage of donors end up hearing about their recipient's need from someone else. So the importance of advocates, I can't overstate, and having these individuals really out there. And the analogy for employment is very similar. How many people end up getting a job because of a friend or someone told them about that job, got that personal referral for a job interview? It's that personal contact within your community. So I know it is difficult, but taking small steps. If you're not involved in social media, then maybe reach out to your local library or school, or someone could teach you, or even watching a YouTube video. How do you get started on Facebook? Easy things to do. It is difficult, but there are just so many avenues where you can help, get help from others, or just do little things to get the word out. And, I talked about meeting people on the street, in grocery stores. People always say, hey, Matt, how are you? And so you have the floor all the time, and, just get some practice in sharing your story. It could just be, 10, 20, 30 seconds. Even if you read the back of the business card that was there, even that short amount of text is enough to give people information about where you're at.
I've had some patients that I think voice concerns about, they don't want to put other people out, and they end up becoming very shy, and they're not comfortable, whether for whatever reason they don't want to tell people about their struggles. For the extroverts, it's very easy, and I'm an extrovert myself, so it's very easy for us to talk about the challenges we're going through, and we get strength from sharing it and from hearing other people's reaction to it. But people that aren't necessarily like that, if they're more introverted, it can be very hard for them to share their challenges. And they don't want to put other in.
Yeah, it can be, but I think if they do it once, I think they'll get good feedback from someone. And if they're, gee, you can even start out, I haven't been telling people about this. Okay, it's something it's very difficult for me to talk about. People start to, their ears lift up, gee, maybe I can help this person. So it is difficult. I know how it is. I'm more extroverted, but it was very difficult for me for my second transplant. Very fortunate that my wife was able to donate, but I needed to develop my campaign, and I know how difficult it was for me also. But getting started, that old line that, that first step on the journey is the hardest. But once you take that first step, you can start to take some others.
And I think like your presentation and Matt's inspiration from hearing from a patient, that again cannot understate the value of peer-to-peer support. So if there's an opportunity, if Dr. Langtree has a patient, connect them to patient support organizations like ourselves or the KFOC that can pair them up with other individuals that are either in similar situations, have faced similar hurdles, had to get over that shy factor and make the first post. Talking to people and recognizing that your reservations, your fears, your concerns are echoed by other people that are further along in their journey or their campaign resonates a lot. And we see that, and I know you see that through your platform, and that's why it's the success that it is, Harvey. Matt, well, we've got you both with us here. Ian has posed the question, does it matter if blood type is positive or negative? And elaborates, if a donor is O negative, can they donate to someone O positive?
Yeah, Matt, you could go for that, but yeah, the RH factor, the plus and the minus is not important when it comes to kidney transplants. So not a factor at all.
So like even crossing blood types, I mean, I love the fact that, as Harvey said in his presentation, it's kind of irrelevant because you need to get people don't know, and you know, there's paired donation, and then there is even theoretically a cross blood type. So, you know, don't worry about that. Get people calling in, know the phone number for your, you know, your transplant center's donor evaluation program. It's going to be a separate nephrologist than is treating you. So it's going to be, you know, having that contact and that information ready to give people, because, you know, blood types shouldn't necessarily be a barrier.
Right, great. Thank you for verifying and confirming that. A couple comments, Harvey, for you. Jan has said, thank you very much for this very informative presentation. I've gotten all of her questions answered tonight that I may not have been able to have answered before, and you explained it perfectly. And now they know what needs to be done. So again, the power of hearing from someone that's walked the walk, as Matt said, who is on the other side of a successful campaign, can really have an impact. And so the video series that Harvey has spoken to tonight that's on our website is complimentary, as Harvey mentioned, of course. It's a great tool to get the ball rolling, I should say. And then I need to mention the Transplant Ambassador Program again recently rolled out a platform called Patients Seeking Donors. And what they are is a wonderful complement to the services that Harvey provides. And they help you set up an actual campaign webpage with a customized URL. And they also provide you with your own personal email address associated to that campaign. So if you're looking to separate it from your personal email account, you want a bit of branding behind it, the Patient Seeking Donors program through the Transplant Ambassadors program is something that I strongly encourage you to check out. So their website is transplantambassadors.ca. We have another comment here from Louisa. Thank you very much for a very informative session. This will help so many of us who are searching for an organ donor in order to continue life with family and friends. So more inspiration from the room. Here's a question for you, Harvey. Do I need to be on the transplant waiting list before looking for a living donor?
Typically, a center won't evaluate someone until they have been approved to get a transplant. So that is typically the case that I find.
I would just say, like, you're not going to be on the list, like the waiting list, until, you know, in order to be on a deceased donor list, you need to accrue points. You need to have end-stage kidney disease. So you do not need to wait to be on a deceased donor list in order to find a living donor. Indeed, ideally, the best case scenario is that you get a preemptive transplant. So you get a transplant before you even reach kidney failure. We do not do deceased donor preemptive transplants in Canada at present. So absolutely the best case situation is to find a living donor before you are on a deceased donor waiting list.
Okay, we're right almost at the top of the hour. I'll include Ian's compliment to you both, thanking you for your great presentations. Harvey, thank you so much for your presentation, for your insightful offerings during the question and answer period. I know how many people have already valued your tutorial videos from our website. I see them rolling in all of the time and people registering. So I know resonating with the PKD, CKD community. I can't thank you enough for the work that you have done with the Living Kidney Donor Network. It is absolutely inspiring and a job well done. So thank you for joining us tonight.
And thank you, Jeff, for the opportunity and the great work that you're doing in Canada. It's absolutely wonderful. So you are also saving lives.
Thank you. And Matt, again, thank you for joining us and jumping back in with your input tonight. I think this was a fantastic session, of course. In the chat, for those still on the call, Marie has provided a SurveyMonkey link for an evaluation. We would love it if you could take the opportunity to give us a few more minutes of your time and provide us with your input. That allows us to adapt and improve upon our educational services like this event. And then lastly, as I close out, we do have 2 more sessions, of course, taking place next week on November 23rd and 24th. So all pertinent information, speaker topics, and bios can be found at the pkdsummit.ca or on our social media channels where we've been promoting it extensively over the last few weeks as well. But I do hope you will consider joining us for the additional sessions as part of the PKD Summit 2022 taking place next week. If there's anything that we can do to provide you with support on your journeys, don't hesitate to reach out to the foundation. We are always available to help you, and all of our contact information can be found on our website at endpkd.ca or for the francophones, fini.la.mpr.ca. Thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight. Thank you to Live Agency for all of their behind the scenes support this evening. And Matt, Harvey, I look forward to chatting with you guys again. Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night.